We'll guide you on Subnautica 2, best settings for max FPS. If you find this helpful, then please consider subscribing and liking the video. There's a lot of different graphics settings to it, so we're going to go and cover the ones that actually matter for performance and frame rate. Make sure to watch the full guide and don't skip anything, otherwise you may miss an important part. So without any further ado, let's go and jump straight into this. Here we are in Subnautica 2 on the main menu. What you need to do is come to the bottom and find the settings button. Go and click on it. From there, come to the top and find the graphics tab. This is where all your visual settings live, and tuning these is what actually controls your GPU load. First thing we're going to do is turn off motion blur. Motion blur eats frame time and adds input latency. And underwater, it just smears everything when you're turning your head. Off is always the right call for max FPS. Next, we're going to go and sort out upscaling. This is the single biggest FPS gain you'll get in the whole video. Come down a bit and find the upscaling option. If you've got an NVIDIA RTX card, set this to DLSS. If you're on AMD, Intel, or older hardware, set it to TSR, which is the built-in Unreal Engine Temporal Super Resolution. Both of these render the game at lower internal resolution and then upscale it intelligently. This massively reduces GPU load. Then come right below it and find Upscale Quality. Set this to Performance. Performance mode gives you the biggest FPS boost, and because Subnautica 2 is mostly underwater with soft, organic visuals, the quality drop is barely noticeable in motion. Come down to Global Illumination, set this to Low. Global Illumination handles indirect light bouncing around the environment, and in Subnautica 2, it's one of the heaviest settings on your GPU. Dropping it to Low gives you a huge frame rate boost, and you'll barely notice a difference once you're swimming through caves and biomes. Right below it, find Shadows, and set this to Medium. Low shadows look noticeably bad with hard pixelated edges around creatures and your base props. The high and ultra are massive GPU killers for almost no visual gain. Medium is the sweet spot that keeps shadow quality looking decent without tanking your FPS. For view distance, set this to medium. View distance controls how far the game renders detailed geometry before swapping to lower detail meshes in the distance. Medium is plenty because Subnautica 2 has heavy fog and water density anyway, so anything past medium is just rendering stuff you literally can't see. Now textures, set this one to high. Textures are mostly a VRAM cost, not a GPU compute cost. As long as you've got 6 GB or more of VRAM, high textures cost you basically 0 FPS, but make the game look significantly better up close. Don't drop this lower unless you're on a 4 GB card. Next, find shading and set this to medium. Shading controls material complexity and surface detail on all your creatures, props, and underwater geometry. Medium keeps the bioluminescent stuff looking right without the heavy compute hit that high and ultra add. Foliage, set this to low. Foliage means all the seaweed, kelp, and plant density in the world. This is one of the most expensive settings in any game, and Subnautica 2 is no exception. Low still gives you a populated, alive-looking ocean, while dramatically reducing the number of draw calls your GPU has to handle. Effects, set this to medium. This covers particles, bubbles, debris, and explosion effects. Medium keeps the underwater atmosphere looking right without the heavy particle count of high or ultra. Reflections, set this to low. Real-time reflections are one of the most GPU-intensive things a modern game can render. And underwater, you're rarely looking at clean, reflective surfaces anyway. Low gives you the biggest FPS recovery here for almost no visual loss. Next, find post-processing and set this to low. Post-processing covers things like bloom, ambient occlusion, depth of field, and color grading effects that get applied on top of the rendered frame. These are pure GPU compute costs with no impact on gameplay. And Low still keeps the underwater atmosphere looking right without burning frame time on screen space effects. Come down to Landscape and set this to medium. Landscape controls the terrain mesh detail and how aggressively the seafloor geometry gets simplified at distance. Low makes the terrain look obviously blocky right in front of you, which matters when you're navigating caves and trenches, but high is overkill. Medium gives you clean terrain where you actually need to see it without the GPU cost of rendering detailed geometry across the whole render distance. And finally, clouds. And set this to low. Clouds are mostly visible when you surface, and the volumetric cloud system in Subnautica 2 is genuinely expensive on your GPU. Low keeps them visible without the volumetric rendering overhead. Now we aren't fully done. Once you change all of those, come to the bottom of the menu and find Apply. Go and click Apply so all of these settings actually save. If you skip this, the game will revert when you back out, and you'll wonder why nothing changed. Go and see if that solves it. Load into your save or start a new game, and you should see a noticeable jump in your Subnautica 2 max FPS, with a much more stable, consistent frame rate, especially in dense biomes and around your underwater bases. Let me know down in the comments which setting gave you the biggest FPS boost, and if this video helped you out, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. for more simple and easy to follow tutorials like this. We post new guides every single day, and thanks for watching.